Hail, fellows, and welcome to Pen Night Radio, where we slay our personal demons and arm ourselves to write our best content. I'm your host, PK, unofficially knighted by a fictional character, which means you do not have to call me sir. For our purposes, PK will do just fine. So let's dive into why we're here. I am very excited for tonight's topic because it's not something I often talk about, but it's something very close to my heart. Tonight, we're going to talk about music, and more specifically, why music matters. We have a great guest lined up for our later segment today, and I'm very excited to share all of this with you. This is Pen Night Radio. Music has been a critical part of my writing process since forever. I'm pretty sure I was listening to music on my first phone before I was doing any serious writing. And before I had a phone, before I had a computer, I think when I was playing video games, I spent my entire life in front of devices. Whoopsie, that's not supposed to be there. 1 second, everybody. Let's get rid of this to avoid confusion. There we go. We don't need that until our second segment. Now, as I was saying, I've always had electronic devices. My parents were very good to me in that regard, but boy, did I have habits. And before I was listening to music and using a phone, I was playing video games. And I would literally pause the games if I liked a piece of music in a game, turn the volume up to the max, and listen to it just blast into the room, to the point that certain individuals who will remain nameless had to tell me that I was going to blow out my eardrums one day. That's so, but the point being, I love music, and I've never shied away from using music in the writing process. Now, I don't play music. I dabbled briefly into guitar and piano when I was younger, but I never learned enough to know how to discuss, notes and libretto and all that stuff. So I haven't really spoken much about music publicly because I couldn't quite find the words for it. But at this point, as somebody who has written, how many now? 4 books, as somebody who has published 2 books and written 4, more coming for publication soon, and who has created playlists for all of those books, who has just collected songs that I listened to while I was drafting all of them and have saved the playlists, has even had a reader or two send me a playlist that they created after reading one of the books that I published. It's just something that I really can say a lot about. Music is, I think, one of the most important things in life. I think it is something that still unifies all of us, in the sense that we all come from very different backgrounds. We all do very different things. We're not all writers. We're not all teachers. We're not all scientists. We're not all this, that, or the other thing. There's so much to do. There's so many skills and talents. There's so much division in the world today. People come from all walks of life. And if you try to describe the writing process to somebody, it's possible that you'll meet somebody who really doesn't know much about that until you tell them. But I think that same person and every other person on that list does know music. I can't think of a person who's never encountered music of any form. It's just, I think, one of the great constants in life. And I use it a lot. For those of you who may not know, if you watch the show, if you're a regular, then you know all about my books, Barker's Rules and The Children of Ark. They are both the start of 2 different fantasy series. They're both the start of 2 different series. One a fantasy series, that's the Calipar, and one a horror series, that is the Meridian, of which Barker's Rules is the first book. And genre is a topic we can cover in another episode, but genre really is a focus I'm learning about myself. Genre is a focus. It's a focus because, Every decision that I make when I'm writing Barker's Rules or the sequels to Barker's Rules is a decision that I think makes good horror. Every decision that I make in the Calipar, even if there are horror elements to it, or even if there are comedic elements to it, are decisions that I think make great epic fantasy. And I was very excited to publish another series before I was done with the first, because I kind of wanted people who were meeting me to kind of start to see, it's not all about horror for me. You know what I mean? Like some people read Barker's Rules and they think to yourself, oh my goodness, what kind of a brain even comes up with stuff like this? And it's just like, well, you got to understand, I write genre. I'm not going to write too many romantic or comedic or adventurous elements into Barker's Rules because I'm trying to do horror. Similarly, I'm not going to do all that creepy stuff that I do in Barker's Rules necessarily in the Calipar because I'm trying to do action fantasy. So anyway, with that established that I write different genres, music is always a part of that. What music I find, what music I lean into always has a final say in what I'm going to be working on that day and what the overall atmosphere is going to be on the page. So let's listen to a few promos real quick. Here's a promo for Barker's Rules that I picked very much. At least 50% of the reason I picked this one was because of the music I was able to find. Enjoy. Now, I don't know about you, but when I listen to that, I'm not about to go, skipping through the meadow, if you know what I'm saying. When I listen to that, I'm going to stand very still. I'm going to be very attentive. I'm probably going to be focused on just one, item or person or incident that's happening that this strange underscore, this very ominous underscore is trying to call our attention to. And that's Barker's Rules. A lot of it takes place in a house. A lot of it takes place in one house where the main character is being held prisoner by the antagonist. So you can see how that sort of underscore is appealing in that sense. Now let's listen to something that I created. Sorry, something that I cobbled together on a website for Calipar. Calipar is a much more complicated world than Meridian, But from those two promos, listening to the vocalizations followed by, that little bop in the second one, there's two elements that I think really come into play with Calipar. There's the idea that it's the backdrop of it is that mankind's predator, which are a bunch of demon monsters, have destroyed the world, and millions of people have already died, either being eaten or shredded or possessed in some way. And the main characters are very much in a survivor's settlement. So the idea of vocalizations, of people screaming, of people crying, of people calling out in some way, definitely kind of sets the mood for a story like that. And then because the characters are, fighting evil, pushing back, trying to survive, and occasionally digging on each other with some sarcastic, sardonic humor along the way, a little bit of techno comes into play here too. So, I mean, those are just small examples of how music can really help to give a series an identity, even if what you're doing is a written work and you're not trying to make music, but you might be looking for music that can help you to set a mood for yourself so that you can really bring your story to life. My favorite genres, I think, are classical, pop, rock, and gospel. For starters, which are all um, genres that were used to create the score for The Lion King, which was a very formative film for me. Orchestral with vocals. That's the soundtrack that was used in Lord of the Rings, which is my favorite. My favorite movie is Lord of the Rings. I kind of put all three parts together and just call them one movie. That's just how I am, because I read the book and the book was, serialized, but you get what I'm saying. Howard Shore, used orchestral, kind of classical music throughout the project, but at various points throughout the movies, the elven language that was created in Tolkien's books is actually sung and used for vocals, which to me is just the tops. Like, it would be one thing for actual, gospel chants to come in order to create, sort of a romantic, hopeful atmosphere. But to use the elements from the novel and to actually use the elven language, you truly create something unique in a soundtrack. You're not going to find that specific song or style in another movie. It's just great. And I've listened to Lord of the Rings and The Lion King a lot, especially as I developed Calipar. Folk music, a cappella music, epic themed music, which is, I think, inspired by my interest in video games, have helped me a lot. Video games use a lot of jigs. I've been moving away from jigs recently. Jigs are really good for capturing my attention quickly, which is important for someone with ADHD, I think. So I definitely listen to a lot of jigs over the years, but I've been moving away from them recently because when I really leaned into something like Lion King or Lord of the Rings and really let it kind of settle in me, I would start tearing up a little bit. And then I felt I was in a place to write some of the more dramatic and emotional scenes for books like Children of Arc. So I've been getting more into that recently, although I still can't get away from those jigs. They're very, they're very pleasing to my brain. My favorite composers are Howard Shore, Lord of the Hans Zimmer, a legend, James Horner. More recently, I love Bear McCreary. He did the God of War soundtrack. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful games. And of course, Nobu Uematsu did the classic Final Fantasy games that were so revolutionary for the world of gaming. And I've been listening to those soundtracks a lot in the past few years. Those are just, if you like any of those people, it's possible that you'll enjoy my books because, whatever feelings that those soundtracks bring on, I guarantee you there's words on those pages in these books that will give you the same feeling. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. There are three purposes I think music can serve in your writing process. And this is something that I want to give to you today before you move on to your writing. Number one, music can spark your creativity. I can't tell you how many times I was driving in my car or watching a new show, and all of a sudden I hear this sound that just ignites a fire in me. I've literally paused shows that I haven't finished yet so that I could run off and write a new chapter or notes for a chapter because of how what I was hearing resonated with my soul. Like coming home from the movie theater was the worst because if I went to the movies and there was a particular scene that had a great piece of music that just like understood exactly what I wanted to capture in a book I was working on, oh man, I'd have to wait very patiently and socialize, honorably throughout the entire car ride home, giving no indication that all I wanted to do was run to my room, put on some headphones, and play the same darn track over and over and over again to the bewilderment of anyone. Because that one sound can just take you to a place where you are now ready to write an entire scene with an entire beginning, middle, and end to it. I can't tell you how many times just listening to a piece of music, anywhere that I encountered it, was just the spark that I needed sometimes to come up with an entire book. So that's one, it sparks your creativity. Number two, it sets the mood. In longer writing sessions, and if you write like I do, you tend to write for a while sometimes, you need to maintain focus. Setting the mood can be essential. Now, for a guy with ADHD, I mentioned that before, this can be a double-edged sword. Using music to set the mood is a tried and tested practice, but there are two sides to it. If I choose the right music and I put it on loop, it can keep my thoughts fixed on the events of that chapter, following every sentence and page, every shift in the action and plot twist with a note of music. But be careful. More than once, I put on a track that maybe just want to get up and dance around the house, which is not the best idea if you're trying to get some writing done. Luckily, focusing music is an entire genre. So I find that when I'm, excuse me, I've never sneezed on the podcast before. Thank you for tolerating that. I tried to do it away from the microphone, so hopefully that didn't blow out your ears just now. But what was I saying? Focusing music is an entire genre, and I have found that when I'm enjoying music to the point that it's actually distracting me from my writing, focusing music is a great thing to turn to. They even have, compositions that just say ADHD relief on them because the specific sounds that are used, these kind of lo-fi beats, these binaural tunes really can kind of keep you focused on what you're doing. And it's really marvelous. I mean, it's sorcery music. So you got to set the mood and do it in a way that helps you focus. Number three, this is the big one. Instruments create emotions. You ever listen to drums and percussion during a battle scene that you're writing? How about listening to violin during an emotional scene between two lovers? Or how about piano during the emotional climax of a story about a father and son coming back together again? You know what happens when you shift from 30 minutes of intense piano to 20 minutes of fast percussion? The entire mood is that you're in an entirely different scene. You've walked into a different planet. The sound controls your thinking and your feeling. So if you can set up a great playlist, which you can do on Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much any music library, you can tailor your playlist to your project. You can tailor a whole playlist to a chapter or just to a book. You can time everything out. If you're clever enough and you're into it enough to do all that, nitty gritty work, you can time everything out so that when you get to a big moment on the soundtrack, you are just getting to a big moment in your chapter. You could almost sync them up in a way so that as you're writing out this thing you've been devising since, 2 days ago or 2 years ago, and you finally got into this big moment, you can get there when you're listening to one of the most powerful pieces of music. And it just really immerses you in another world. It's powerful stuff. I found this invigorated me several times over the course of my last 3 projects, and I know it can do the same for you. Folks, music matters. Music matters because music is good for your health and your mind. Music gives us a way to communicate. Music taps into our emotions and helps us to unleash our emotions. Music is one of the most recognized art forms in the world, one of the most accessible. It has roots in nature and has been a critical aspect of every world culture since the dawn of time. Ask anybody. There's way more music out there than books or poems or any form of writing. And that's why if you are writing in written word, even if you're not putting something on the screen and working with technology, you're going to encounter music. You're going to hear a song that reminds you of a scene or a chapter or a character, and it's going to become a part of your process. If you're writing, music is always going to be there, waiting for you to make it a key part of your process. And folks, I just got to encourage you. If you are a multi-talented artist who writes, who acts, who knows how to play music, you can do all of it, even if the thought of it sounds exhausting. You can sit around and play guitar for a few hours and just let your thoughts focus on that, and then put it down and write a page or 2 pages or a chapter. The more that we connect with what really unlocks our emotions and what is meaningful to us and important to us, the more we can just sit down and write something that is authentic and real and going to be a fantastic experience for a reader. And that's to make no mention of the fact that music is one of the biggest things in the world of art to this day, at every level of art. And we're going to talk to an amazing musical artist in a moment. Pen Night Radio is dedicated to bringing you content that is both entertaining and educational. We share personal and business experience to help you figure out how to tackle the most puzzling issues in your craft, slay the demons that are holding you down, and turn that blank page into a full page. So we'll be back shortly for a special interview as part of Drop a Line. Stay tuned, friends. Stay tuned.